Hello everybody, welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing well and that you're all having a great day. And without any further ado, let's jump right into it. Apologies ahead if I sound a little down. It's been the last 14 or so days have been quite intense. I'm also not feeling like that well, so these things do happen, especially at this time of year. I had hoped. I was quite hopeful is the word I'm looking for, that we as a community would have been able to simply focus on the news at hand. In that, we have been or had been past tense, waiting for the Bitcoin ETF event to happen for a very long time. After the first 5 days of price movements and people being very flustered and angered and annoyed, believe me, as always, I look and I lurk around on Twitter, seeing what's happening, what the conversation of the weeks has been. Everyone has seemingly mentally moved along to the next big shiny thing that's happening in the room. I'm honestly completely shocked myself that after 10 years, us getting this one thing that everyone claimed that they wanted, it's now on to the next thing, which is I would dare say like one of the most popular news stories of the day. We are going to continue hearing about this over the course of the next 10 or so weeks. It's just the way that the market is going to be. But of course, without any further ado, crypto Twitter has completely swapped over from the idea of the Bitcoin ETFs within the United States. For those of you who missed it before, not the actual introduction of the ETFs, we had many other ETFs already in other places around the world. But no one really seemed to care about that. I saw a couple of articles, not joking, discussing how the US Bitcoin ETFs were the first on the planet. And then I had to sit there and be like, no, once again, because people refuse to pay any kind of attention. Apparently the ETFs are completely old news. It says, after some turbulence caused by an alleged fake tweet from the US SEC, which we heard from before, which also made major news, apparently everyone's over it, and attention can now shift to the next big thing, the Bitcoin halving. You might have seen on TV, you might have heard something from Cathie Wood, you might have seen on Twitter and or Reddit or wherever you're getting your cryptocurrency news information from. This is now the next big event, the next big thing, what everyone's paying attention to, and it is Bitcoin's issuance rate getting cut in half. The biggest Bitcoin event has less than 100 days to go. Depending on where you look, you are going to find different times and different numbers. This is why I think many different websites now have listed less than 100 days. You look on certain websites, they'll say 91. Others will say 86. It depends on where you look. They're all counting, or it's estimated, about the amount of blocks that are created on Bitcoin's chain. And therefore, mathematically, people can say, well, if blocks are being created at this amount of time in different intervals, we will have the halving on this time. But other people are expecting more transactions to happen as we get closer to the halving, so they calculate it slightly different. This is why you will see on different websites, they have different times, but many websites will have listed less than 100 days as a guesstimate. The past halvings have directly correlated with Bitcoin's bull runs, but could the spot Bitcoin ETFs influence the price of Bitcoin in this halving cycle, interfering with short and long-term Bitcoin price predictions? I'm sure I don't even need to go too deep into this one. The news that we have right now as to why potentially Bitcoin's price has been falling or fell since the introduction of ETFs is literally all over the place. People are assuming it has something to do with companies who are selling off, with companies who are buying over the counter. It could have something to do with Grayscale's trust and not their fund. It could have something to do with crypto being moved onto exchanges. I've seen all levels of speculation regarding everything as to why it might be happening. And now a lot of people are asking, because of the introduction of the ETFs, could this potentially have some type of an effect on Bitcoin's price in a negative and or positive way, as we were all expecting, all of us were expecting, even the big ones, the big analysts, that Bitcoin's price was going to move up instantaneously after the ETFs that we waited 10 years for finally were introduced. And therefore, people are asking, could the ETF then maybe potentially have some type of a negative influence on Bitcoin's price as we move closer to the halving? As we have seen before, over the course of every other halving, usually days and or a week before Bitcoin's halving, after as well, Bitcoin's price tends to move up. And this tends to relatively continue over the course of an 18-month period, 18-month plus, what have you. Keeping in mind that we are already a lot higher than we were this time last year. This is what I think a lot of people, I'm not sure if they choose to forget a lot of these things. Remember, Bitcoin was just at 16, 17, 18,000, and the big piece of news was, can Bitcoin pass by 20,000? Will Bitcoin pass 23,000? Can Bitcoin pass 27,000? Remember that time we were between 26, 27, 28,000, and the news was if Bitcoin can go past 30,000, it's going to hit, logically, it's going to hit 40,000. We finally got to 45, 46, 47, 48 during the ETF introduction. We fell down from 49. We are currently wherever we are now, depending on what time of the day you're watching this video, because the price fluctuations against all coins is quite dramatic. So we have technically, comparative to other years, already done betterer than other years. But I think, once again, especially when you have the Samson Mao, the other head of Blockstream, the Cathie Wood, the Novogratz, the Plan B expectations of 100K, for those of you who missed those videos. The expectation, and I still see this on Twitter, to be fair, it is not yet February. The expectations, for those of you who missed it, was that the accumulation of Bitcoin from the ETF holders would amass an enormous amount of buying pressure whenever people do buy, as we Dubai, boom, boom, the people right now who are buying, it seems like the larger amounts are doing it OTC. They're doing it over the counter, which has no exact immediate effect on price, as they're doing it. It's not off chain. They're just doing it off crypto exchange. So there's just so many things wrapped up in all of this. But anyway, getting back to the idea of the Bitcoin halving, as it were. It says the Bitcoin halving is an event that occurs approximately every 4 years, reducing the rate at which Bitcoin units are generated and earned by people who are mining on the Bitcoin network. Specifically, people who are mining, their rewards for validating and adding new blocks to the blockchain is reduced by half. Therefore, the halving. I think this is it right here. This is the Bitcoin issuance schedule. Sheduli? I can't say it any other way. Sheduli. Why do we say Sheduli? Anyway, the point is, it is dramatically decreasing, and I'm very happy that I found this exact one as well to show everyone, because I've mentioned before, and you've heard me say it, there's not enough left. There's not enough Bitcoin for everyone out there. I understand that you can buy Satoshis. For those of you not looking at the screen, and for those of you who are especially, these numbers are quite dramatic. And the reason why Bitcoin's price tends to rise so quickly after we've had a halving is because of the halving. I don't really know how to explain it. It's literal supply and demand. Anytime there's a movement up in price, people want to buy more. But the issue is that people who've already been in the market, who understand the dynamics and movements of Bitcoin, understand that the amount being created continues to literally hit the ground. So remember where I told you that the 2032 is supposed to be like the hyper most significant year? We've heard for a long time that 2024's halving is going to be something quite insane. We are moving down from 6.25 Bitcoin down to 3.12. Over the course of the next two halvings after that, we will hit an issuance rate of 0.78 Bitcoin. Only 0.78 Bitcoin will be created per block. I think even this one, I believe we're moving down from 900 to 450 Bitcoin created per day. That'll be 225, and that eventually becomes only 112 Bitcoin created per day as well by the time that we get around here. This literally means, for those of you who are lucky enough to have more than 0.78 Bitcoin, you will have more than what's actually created per block, which is quite significant. And this is why I personally believe that we've seen all the institutions entering the market right now. This is meant to be a very significant year, a very significant halving. You can even see around this time when the halving takes place, we will have created more than 90% of all Bitcoin that there will ever be. For those of you once again looking at the screen, the issuance rate collapses. We are at the collapse point. And even when we get to the year 2041, which is where this chart happens to end, because why have a gigantic chart that continues on, we will still have another 100 years of Bitcoin mining with barely any Bitcoin actually being created by the machine. It's very significant. A lot of people have begun to pay attention to this one moment. Everyone is talking about it. It seems to be the brand new thing. I still remain on my let's see if the other price predictions end up being true. I think, again, once a lot of people were quite agitated that there was no immediate movement up. Believe me, I saw the comments. I saw people talking on Twitter. I saw everyone else ranting and raving. As of right now, we know that massive amounts of accumulation are still happening. If you haven't seen the news, the companies are buying up massive amounts of Bitcoin. A lot of people, for some reason, still focus only on price movements up and or what MicroStrategy says. So anything that's not MicroStrategy or an immediate movement up in price, as we've been over this before. We've been over this before. If you've been here for a while, we talked about this in the past. People assume that because the price is going down, this means that everyone is selling, as opposed to one specific event or one specific company who might be trying to liquidate other people out of the market. We are not meant to be here. I cannot convey that enough in words in English. This is not meant to be our market anymore. The big boys are here. They want all of the coins, especially as there's going to be fewer and fewer that are going to be created. Anyway, that's the Bitcoin halving news. Like I said before, we will be hearing a lot more about this over the course of the next couple of weeks. And then by the time that we have the halving, the normal news after that always tends to be money, prices, movements. How high? Where are we going? It flows right back into this like, okay, cool, we're all here to make money. People will begin to make money. Some people will complain because they're not making enough money. But that's the way that the market always moves. There's less than 100 days for Bitcoin's halving news. And yeah, let's move on. In news that I think was maybe supposed to shock people, but I'm not sure at all. Cathie Wood, the CEO of ARK Invest, recently shared her insights on the future of Bitcoin ETFs. In a Yahoo Finance interview, she predicted that only 3 to 4 spot ETFs would survive in the long term. I assume she assumes one of hers is going to be surviving as well. This forecast comes amidst the launch of 11 such ETFs, including one from ARK, indicating a significant milestone in the cryptocurrency landscape. A lot of other companies have also been saying the exact same thing. She's not the only one who's mentioning this. They do believe that other ETFs are going to fail. I think I could have told you that without even having been in the cryptocurrency market. We did not even need one Bitcoin ETF in this market, but everyone's been asking for it for a very long time. So of course we were going to get one. The idea is that, and it is also true, we can see the numbers by accumulation and also daily trading volume, that the institutions are definitely, like, you can't deny it anymore, that they're definitely here. But the idea that we would need this many is also kind of preposterous, because realistically, probably only 2 or 3 are really going, like, of this bunch are going to make it, if trading volumes do completely jump into the sky as we get closer to the halving and or after the halving, I think a lot of them will do fairly well, but it's going to be the ones that have the lower fees. And, no one wants to pay, it's true, no one wants to pay 1.5%, but how do I say this so we can move on? A lot of companies began to announce news similar to what Cathie Wood is saying, and a lot of people were like, oh my gosh, what does that mean for the Bitcoin market? It doesn't really mean a lot. Money is simply going to flow into a smaller amount of funds than other ones. People are going to choose the ones that have lower fees as opposed to being like, I'm going to spread all of my money evenly across 11 different funds. The majority of people are probably just going to probably just choose BlackRock and Fidelity, and anyone else who ends up floating alongside next to them will also receive a large amount of money as well. But the idea that there's going to be less ETFs in the market is not a bad thing at all. We were going to move up in price regardless. We were going to see a massive amount of accumulation. We were going to see less Bitcoin being created. We were going to see the halving. We were going to see Bitcoin at some point go over $100,000. However, the accumulation by these funds is only accelerating that process. So yes, Cathie Wood, and if I find the other articles, I'll show them on screen for a little bit. But a lot of other people are talking about that there's not going to be that many funds, and a lot of people took it as a negative sounding thing, and it's like, no, like we don't need 9,000 Bitcoin ETFs. In general, one would have sufficed. However, we were told, or it was predicted for a while, that we would receive multiple ETFs to kind of level the playing field, which is also a load of BS, if you will. That's not many ETFs will probably be around for spot Bitcoin in the next 2 years or so because we don't need all of them news. And yeah, let's move on. Also in news that was supposed to be scary, but it's not scary at all news. American investment management firm, they're called VanEck, has announced that they will be ending and liquidating their Bitcoin strategy ETFs. I'll get there in a second. The announcement comes days after the US SEC approved its spot Bitcoin ETF application. Notably, both exchange-traded funds are different from one another. VanEck has two different Bitcoin ETFs. One is a spot ETF where they're buying actual Bitcoin. The other one is a futures ETF and does not directly invest into Bitcoin at all. It is a US dollar-based fund, and that is the difference. As I mentioned before and have in many other videos, no one is really into Bitcoin futures, especially as now we have Bitcoin ETFs. We have seen before in the past that a large amount of companies were able to heavily influence Bitcoin's price when it came to futures. That was for some reason a thing over the course of a year. It was a very weird narrative that every Friday as the futures were finishing, that if the price fell, Bitcoin's real price also had to fall as well. And that drove me absolutely insane. A lot of you might remember because I said this is not Bitcoin. It is simply like I could create a piece of paper that says like Bitcoin go down and I hand it to all of you. And can you imagine Bitcoin's price dropping? It is not Bitcoin. It's not tied to a blockchain. It is based on a piece of paper that is denominated in US dollars. The news was, for those of you who didn't get the difference or catch the hint, a lot of people were announcing, you can even see it on the screen, it says factors leading to the closure of the Bitcoin ETF. This was not a true Bitcoin ETF, air quotes, similar to the one that we were expecting. So this also pumped a large amount of fear into the market, which is all that's been happening over the course of the last 10 days or so. I'm not sure if you realized it, but boy, howdy, have I. A lot of people have made sure to write articles, to have videos, to simply try and scare the living heck out of everyone who's in the market to make them believe that something terrible is going on. If you have an article about Cathie Wood saying that out of 11 Bitcoin ETFs, she's only expecting 3 or 4 to make it, you would assume that she means that there's not enough interest. No one's going to use them, and therefore 7 or 8 of them are going to completely vanish and disappear, therefore in some way harming Bitcoin. If you have a number of articles talking about 10, 11 days after we've gotten Bitcoin ETFs, that VanEck is closing a Bitcoin ETF, you would assume something negative or terrible or scary or horrible is happening. They, for some reason, decided to have a futures-linked Bitcoin ETF that no one was asking for. We already have a multitude of Bitcoin futures, ETFs, funds, whatever you want to call them, ETPs. They're all over the place. They're all around the world. Binance and I believe Coinbase, they all have Bitcoin futures. These people creating another one that didn't have any demand was nonsensical for them. We've known since around 2018 or 2019, for those of you who were not here, the people from the New York Stock Exchange, what was the other thing that was called? Anyway, the people from the New York Stock Exchange, they also have the ICE, the Intercontinental Exchange, created something called BACT, B-A-K-K-T. And BACT also created their own Bitcoin futures because at this point, the idea or the discussion of there being a spot Bitcoin ETF was simply not even remotely in the air. So they created their own Bitcoin futures. And we had news, I think a couple of months after they created it. I remember it was June. June is the time that always sticks out in my head. I'm not sure why. That one day, there was literally a day, their trading volume was zero. Not $1, not $50, not $35 million, not $1 billion. It was zero. It had zero interest and there were $0 flowing through it. Because the people who are actually smart and who are in this market understand that if you want to invest in Bitcoin, you have to have the actual Bitcoin. The ETFs are for people who, for some reason, say that they don't want, and I've heard all the not the answers, what's the word? All the arguments. These are for people who don't want to physically have to find out how to buy Bitcoin themselves. They're too lazy to go to Coinbase. They don't have the time to figure out how to buy on Kraken. So through their brokerage account that they already have, they want exposure to Bitcoin. And they assume that having a fraction of a Bitcoin ETF is their way of doing so. People will learn very quick in the future, especially as you are trying to liquidate your Bitcoin ETFs and you realize that you receive US dollars back, that you should have had actual Bitcoin the entire time. But that's something else for the future. So in news that was supposed to be scary, but it's not actually scary at all, VanEck is ending one of their ETFs. It's because it's futures. No one wants Bitcoin futures. That's been established over the course. I mean, it's six years now at this point. It's just nonsense. So that's the scary, terrifying closure of their Bitcoin futures fund news. And yeah, let's move on. Also in, I guess, not scary news, on Tuesday, Binance, the world's leading crypto exchange still, which is incredible after all the mud that was thrown at their faces, has announced the inauguration of their Thailand wing. The newly established exchange, called Binance TH or Binance Thailand, is established by Gulf Binance, which is a collaborative effort between Binance and Gulf Innova from Thailand. It will function both as an exchange and a brokerage platform. Fantastic. Binance TH aims to facilitate the seamless buying and selling of crypto featuring local currency pairings, as outlined in their statement online. Anything crazier in the article? No, nothing too crazy that's actually there. So very proud of Binance. Like I can't stress that enough. For those of you who were not here last year, who maybe missed those videos, who weren't paying attention, the amount of flack that Coinbase, Kraken, Gemini, and Binance got seemingly endlessly was one of the weirdest things in the entire world. We received the news that allegedly it might have been done because Gary Gensler has alleged potential political aspirations. This was said by Cathie Wood, I believe, as well. And therefore, everyone had to get in trouble at the exact same time. And I knew that something was amiss when Gemini got in trouble. The Gemini twins, the Winklevoss twins, have been asking for cryptocurrency regulation since 2012, 2013. And I mean, like, regulate us, give us rules. We want to work within these parameters. And guess who said no? The regulators, the SEC. So since then, we've seen this really weird digital witch hunt across the board where everyone had to get in trouble. You might have seen quite recently, I think Coinbase, I believe now, is currently in court with the US SEC, which is also completely ridiculous and fraudulent. And it looks like, we don't know yet, we're not in the courtroom. But from the news that we've been getting, it looks like Coinbase might be winning because the SEC never really has an actual argument. They go after companies. They expect them to pay hundreds of millions of dollars, or in Binance's case, they wanted billions, that is billions with a B, of dollars from Binance. And I think that even that got whittled down to a couple million, or I forgot what it was. It's just so nonsensical, which is also, it makes you think, how did your calculations get to billions of dollars when they only, air quotes, had to pay a couple of million? What were you lying about? So since then, since we've seen the actual official movement into Bitcoin from Fidelity and BlackRock and all the other big boys, if you will, the amount of sludge being thrown at crypto exchanges has kind of shifted just to Binance at this point. But it's mainly Binance and Tether, for those of you who've also been missing that news. It's mainly Binance and Tether at this point, and Coinbase is now like the golden child because Coinbase is the custody solution for nearly all of these ETFs as well. So despite all of that, very good news. Binance has remained as the top cryptocurrency exchange on the planet, and I can only assume the people from BlackRock, Fidelity, and I would whisper the name Coinbase are probably not too happy after a year and a half of a really, really abundantly clear smear campaign that's been going on. So Binance continues to expand. For those of you, I don't have the tab here. For those of you who haven't seen the Tether news, what's basically been happening is that a number of other companies are trying to create their own stablecoins, and stablecoins have basically gotten a light level of recognition around the world and also within the United States as something that's legal and that people can have. Other companies are trying to create their own and or trying to bolster and raise up other ones that are currently out there. So this is why we saw Binance's stablecoin, the BUSD, completely fall apart. It's because of regulatory nonsense. And this is why you can keep finding articles about Circle Coin, the coin that is backed by Coinbase. Ha ha ha, go figure. A lot of articles are talking about how amazing and awesome that it is. There was something a day or two ago talking about the legitimacy of Tether once again, simply because these other companies have figured out that the money, I think we had news once or twice, that the money in fees that Tether makes is like in the billions of dollars. So they have low fees to use their coins. But if everyone or a large majority of people are sending hundreds of millions of dollars back and forth using Tether, of course, the fees will then add up. And this is where Tether gets a large portion of their money from. And banks and institutions want that, and Coinbase wants that. This is why we saw like such good news about Circle Coin before, and also everyone who was also backing them as well. So it's just another gigantic smear campaign. The most recent one, once again, is about if Tether actually has all of their backing. They have constant edits. For those of you who don't know, Tether also does now, because they have to, because people won't shut up, they do a 24-hour edit. If you are a company, you typically would have an audit around every 3 to 4 months, like once a different season, every quarter, to show that you actually have the money that you have. Understand the significance of doing an audit every 24 hours. And what Tether also said that they're going to make sure to do as well sometime this year is a constant up-to-date audit. So literally second by second, as money is moving in and out of their system, the rest of the world will be able to see, because it's gotten to that point where people continue to lie about other things in the cryptocurrency space so much that you now have to do an on-demand, second by second audit of how much money that you actually have, which is funny because we do not hear that about banks or other institutions. So the amount of scrutiny that Tether is getting comparative even to other stable coins is absolutely disgusting. So light golf clap for Binance and for Tether as well for sticking it out, for making sure that they know that they're doing the correct thing and also going to other places around the world and being regulatorily compliant. Yeah, I think that's actually going to do it for this video. The cryptocurrency space is getting more and more intense. I know I'm not the only one who's feeling it. I see someone there right now shaking their head up and down. As always, as I've mentioned before, and it seems to be more and more videos now. Don't forget to take time off for yourself. Take a day off from the market. Take a week off from the market. Don't look at any news. Do what you need to do to kind of get yourself centered once again. We are still not at the halving, and believe me, it is going to get completely insane as we get closer, and also after the actual halving as well. But take time out for yourself, do something fun, something that makes you laugh, something that makes you happy, and just do something, because concerning about the market is going to drive you completely insane. I have a lot of friends over the last 2 or 3 weeks who have lost it. They've been going completely insane, thinking about the market every single day and where it's going and what it's going to do, and looking at their money dropping down. And I'm sure more than a couple of you have also been dealing with friends and or family members who either you haven't heard from a while, or just randomly who have gotten into the market, especially as the ETF happened. The prices dropped, and I'm sure they've been messaging you, asking you every 14 seconds why Bitcoin is down by 1%. It is quite draining. I do hope that you have all enjoyed. I do hope that you all are having a great day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be. I do hope it is absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and or supporting. And I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.